Hello, class, and welcome to my This Is Me. The purpose behind this is for you to get to know a little bit more about me, my background, and some of the traits I bring to this course. The other benefit, I think, for me is that I get to know a little bit about you. And I get to understand your background, where you're coming from, what your interests are, and what brings you to the course. I think it allows us, or me, to tailor the course a little bit more to my students once I understand a little bit about their background. And also it builds that sense of community. We don't get to see each other Monday, Wednesday, Friday for class, so this is a good way to at least put a image to the actual voice that we're hearing in class, or to the assignments, or to the documents in the class. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started on my This Is Me. So I was born in Danville, Illinois, town of about 39,000, right there in the Midwest. I use this picture because this is kind of how I looked at Danville. In the winter, it was always cold and dreary and overcast. But it was a great town to grow up in. It's where I got a lot of my values. Growing up there, it seems like you couldn't go anywhere without knowing somebody, or your parents knowing somebody. And I had the opportunity to, be involved in everything and be part of a community, which I really enjoyed, and it's something you don't find in a lot of towns. Halfway through my high school career, we moved to Charleston, South Carolina, and this was a complete and obvious cultural shock for me. We went from a town where you would know everybody to a town where you knew nobody. You didn't have the connections you had growing up, and this experience, one of the things I got out of this experience, the idea that I want my children to grow up in the same community. Ideally, I don't want to move around and have all these different stops. My wife grew up in the same town, and she still regularly communicates with friends that she went to elementary school with. Because we moved during high school, that really wasn't an option as much for me. Obviously, social media has had a play in that, but I enjoy Charleston. I've been back there a few times. I got married in Charleston, and I love the town, but it was definitely a challenging experience to transfer high school. From there, after high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I went to a junior college, still had no idea what I wanted to do. Went marketing because I thought that would be something that sounded fun and interesting, and just kind of kicked around for a few years, figuring out what I wanted to do, tried different schools, moved around, tried different careers, but still really had no idea what I really wanted to do. That started to change when I decided to play football. I'd never played football before. I called up a coach at Rock Valley College, a community college outside of Chicago. So this is me, and that is my brother there. And we went there, went to school, played football, and it really refocused me. I did really well academically, and I really got focused. I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to get my degree. So then I transferred to Guilford College. Initially to play football, I ended up coaching. I'm in here somewhere. And it was a Quaker school, great environment where all the students knew each other, and it was in Greensboro, North Carolina. So I was back in the South. My family had moved down there. So I was back in North Carolina at Guilford College, and I got my degree in business administration. And I'd always been told, you get your college degree, go do whatever you want to do. So me and my brother loaded up and moved to Naples, Florida. Went down to Naples, Florida, and I couldn't get a job. I had a college degree, but I had no skills. There's nothing I could do that no one else could do. And that's something I emphasize in all my classes. What are skills you can learn? What skills can you get out of this class that can separate you from somebody else when you're trying to get a job? I think that's really critical for students to develop those skills and have skills or traits that can separate them when they actually go out into the job world. So I lived down in Florida, waited tables for a while, tried a couple different jobs I really didn't like. Again, still didn't know what I wanted to do. Every day I'd pass by I worked for Citigroup as a regulatory analyst, where I sat in front of a computer all day and worked in Excel and absolutely hated it. I'd come home every day. When I'd drive home, I'd drive past a high school football field, and they'd be practicing football. I thought maybe I'd like teaching. Maybe I'd like to go teach and coach football. So moved back to North Carolina, went to East Carolina University, got my master's in business and information technology education. I was going to go teach business and also coach football. That was my plan. So I graduated from East Carolina, and during this time, what really interested or intrigued me about getting my doctorate was I had to step in I was a graduate assistant here, and I had to step in for a professor for one day. And just for 5 minutes, I didn't have to do anything, just stand there so the students wouldn't leave. So I'm standing in there, and he comes walking in, a couple minutes into the class, and he goes, "Thank you, Dr. Thornton." And I thought that sounded pretty cool, and it might be something I'd like to do. So that intrigued me and certainly piqued my interest in becoming a professor. After East Carolina, I went to Monroe High School and taught business education for a year. It was a high school outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. They had, as you can see, great athletic amenities, but the classrooms were certainly lacking. You had a lot of students that had no desire to be in school, and it was certainly challenging creating curriculum that was relevant to them. It had to be all about how could they benefit from this courses. I enjoyed my year there, but I knew I wanted to go get my doctorate. Ended up going to North Carolina State and got my EDD in technology design and engineering education. My focus there really was digital media and emerging technology. So I really love the video production process. I love talking about different emerging technologies and how they can impact education and society. So my dissertation was on augmented reality and how we could use that in an introductory engineering graphics course. It seems like when I was going through my dissertation, there wasn't a lot of research on augmented reality. Now you see augmented reality everywhere. And, there's articles on how different companies are using it and how it's being used, but it's a really interesting technology where you just augment the landscape with a virtual image, as the example here shows, where that model is not really on the wall, but through augmented reality, it becomes available. During my fourth year, I spent 3 years as a teaching assistant at NC State, and I had 1 year to go on my doctorate. So I went and taught at Langtree Charter School. I taught 5th and 6th graders technology, and that certainly was an interesting experience, just to see what they knew and how they interacted. Again, for those of us in education, realize that education in the classroom is a unique environment. For people that aren't in it, they should really go out and observe a classroom. And I really enjoyed my time here teaching technology. It was a charter school, so even being in a charter school was certainly an interesting perspective. And I definitely see the pros and cons to charter schools, and I think a lot of it comes down to the type of charter school and how they're using their resources and how open it is to all students. After completing my doctorate and my year at Langtree, I went to Emporia State, where I was the last 3.5 years. It's in Emporia, Kansas, a couple hours, southwest of Kansas City. Again, a small town, a smaller campus, about 6,000 students. I taught business education and business courses there, some technology as well. So I was kind of all over the place. I enjoyed my experience at Emporia State. It was a great community where, I would know everybody and get to interact with people. The students were amazing, the faculty were amazing, and I really enjoyed my time there. But I wanted, a different challenge. I wanted a different learning environment, and that's how I ended up here at Athens State. So this is my first semester at Athens State. I moved here about 3 weeks ago with my family. My wife is a speech pathologist, and I have a couple kids, and I'll show you that here in a second. But first, here are some of my interests. I'm a Green Bay Packers fan. As a kid, my favorite colors were green and yellow, so it's a natural fit to be a Packers fan. I love going fishing. That's my daughter a few years ago. I'm a huge Tennessee Volunteers fan, which I realize probably doesn't sit that well down here, but I'm surprised there's as many Tennessee fans as there are. Hopefully, we'll kind of ride our ways now and get going in the right direction. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I've really gotten into the Civil War and just reading different books and reading different soldiers' journey through the Civil War. So this is at Antietam Battlefield. So I try to go through a couple different Civil War sites here on my way down here, I stopped off at Franklin and looked around there a little bit. I just think it was a fascinating time, and obviously there's a lot of relevance to what we see in society today. But for me, I just don't understand how those soldiers would do what they did. But in the end, I think it worked out best. And as a country, we've definitely grown from that experience, but we're still dealing with some of those issues. Finally, here's my family. So there's my wife. I have a daughter, Brinley, and my son, Tavin. They're 3 and 1 now. And it eats up a lot of your time, but they're pretty amazing. And fortunately, I have all my family down here with me in Madison. My wife works at Mill Creek Elementary, and we're excited to be here in Alabama and look forward to the future.